Starting the stream. All right. It's Monday, July 8th, 2019. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, the dark web. Do-do-do-do-do-do. All right, go for it.
So over the weekend, we went back to Rochester to visit some friends.
The city of Rochester that birthed us into this world as functioning semi-adults.
Have some 4th of July festivities. Especially since, we couldn't, the fireworks in the city have moved to where we can't see them.
Yep,
so
but we can see the Astoria fireworks.
Yeah, but we already saw those on Thursday. So what reason is there to stay in town? Not much. So to get to Rochester, there's 3 options to get there reasonably. Way number 1, drive a car for 6 hours. That fucking sucks.
It sucks.
I've done it several times. 6 hours each way, by the way.
I've done that drive many times in my life.
It is unpleasant.
You take Route 17. Well, I guess now I-86.
Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to avoid that. So option 2 is take Amtrak and then have someone pick you up. The train station is in a shitty place. The train is unreliable, and it still takes for fucking ever. You're better off in the car.
However, I would say you're not better off in the car because you can take a sleeper car, which costs basically nothing on Amtrak.
It takes for fucking ever.
Yeah, but you know what? You basically just hang out in a private, comfortable room with pretty good food and internet the whole time.
Option 3 is pay some money, but actually quite a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah.
And fly there. You spend some time waiting at the airport, but even with the airport time, which is like an hour maybe, right? On each end waiting for the plane, you got to get there a little early, get through security, right? The plane is literally like up snacks land.
Yep.
It's like 45 minutes,
yeah, the flying time is like 40 minutes or less. Like and all the rest of the time is the taxiway.
Like the plane takes off, you get in the air, they turn the seatbelt sign off, you take out your Switch, you start playing Mario Maker, and then it's like, all right, we are now landing. It's like
I didn't even finish one episode of Voyager because I had one episode I hadn't watched, so I started watching
They bring you the Cheez-Its, you open them, you eat them, you throw them out, you land. It's great. It's totally worth the money if you can afford it. I mean, it's actually compared to if you think of the total cost of car ownership, and the gas and stuff, I guess if you have a lot of people in the car, you're saving a lot of money driving.
Yeah.
But less people, it's like if you're only one person driving, it's like the plane is actually pretty comparable price-wise. And the Amtrak, which is the worst of the 3, is no cheaper than the plane by any means. So,
though I do like long Amtrak rides, but the problem is that costs time.
Yep.
And while I would like to have
for that amount of
time,
money, you get a lot more time hanging with your friends you don't see a lot in Rochester.
Yeah.
And a lot more comfort and a lot easier weekend.
So what's funny is that the reason we're talking about this before we do the rest of the show is that for a long time, I don't like JetBlue anymore. They're really they're late a lot. And usually Delta's actually cheaper depending on when I'm going. I fly Delta 80% of the time when I fly these days.
Yeah, I usually.
And many times I fly Delta. A friend of mine flies JetBlue. I arrive on time. They're 3 hours late. That happens a lot.
Usually I fly JetBlue, but these days, since JetBlue has gone downhill, it used to be I flew JetBlue when it was more egalitarian. Now they've got first class and stuff.
Yeah, JetBlue used to have no classes.
Yep, it used to just be all the seats are the same. It was great. Anyway. Back in those days, I flew JetBlue all the time. But now I basically just go on Google Flights or other comparison sites and get the cheapest flight that is the most convenient time that's direct.
And is not Spirit Airways or an equivalent.
Right, exactly.
Never.
From a real legit airline that's not garbage, like not flying United.
But normally I would not fly JetBlue because they're not that great anymore. But they do happen to fly to Rochester.
Yep.
They happen to fly at a good time. And I used to fly JetBlue a lot. I had so many JetBlue points that I just used them to buy these flights.
Yeah, I didn't think about my points. I probably could have also gotten because I never used a JetBlue point.
Because I want to use the points and then just never fly JetBlue again.
But anyway, so I flew Delta instead of JetBlue because it was the price difference was minuscule, like $10 or something each way. The Delta was slightly cheaper, but the times of the Delta flights are much more convenient. We were going to leave, relatively early on Thursday on the 4th of July.
Yep.
Get to Rochester early, party, and then leave Rochester early on Sunday, get back home in New York in time for lunch, and have a great old Sunday in New York. So getting to Rochester, everything was A-okay. Going home, well, I woke up to get, thinking, all right, let me get my stuff together, head over 10 minutes to the airport, right? I look at my phone and it says flight delayed, few hours. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll just, not get up.
Hang out more.
I'll hang out some more, eat a little food, hang out. It's like 3 hours or whatever. I'm like, all right, hanging out for 3 hours. 3 hours go by. Check my phone. The delay time has not changed whatsoever. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to the airport. I'm glad I didn't have to sit at the airport for 3 hours. Go to the airport, and we get there. And when we get there, it still says, the time it said on the phone. And I'm like, all right, it's cool. We're going to sit here for like 30 minutes and then get on a plane, right? And then the time changes. They push it ahead like a couple hours. And I'm like, well, that's annoying, but, I'll just eat some food here, right? There's some not the worst food in the world here.
Now, meanwhile, because I did JetBlue, I was flying home at like 6:00 p.m. on Sunday.
Yeah,
I decided, partly because I wanted to hang out with other family.
Home. Our plane was leaving Rochester at 11. I would have been home in New York at like noon.
And I had planned a day of doing stuff with family, like in the Rochester area on Sunday, and then getting home, having dinner, and then just going to bed.
Right. The flight was delayed until like 3, so I'm hanging out at the airport like 2 something, and then suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, 4, 5. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, we're just going to hang out here and eat.
It gets to the point
There's
to
no
where
reason to leave and come back at this point, right?
I head to the airport for my like 6 p.m. flight, and lo and behold, there's Scott.
There we are. It's like it was delayed that perfect amount of time where if it was delayed 1 hour longer than that, I would have left. I would have called my friends and left and come back, right? But it was just that right amount of time where it's like, oh, not really worth it to leave and come back.
I wish airlines, if they're gonna be that delayed, do not be optimistic. Just be like, yo, this flight is not coming.
Yep. So basically, what had happened was the original delay was because of troubles at JFK, which also delayed Rim's flight.
Yep, my flight was delayed an hour to 6 from 5. They warned me way in advance, so we just left for the airport way later.
Yep. But then my specific plane, right, had some kind of mechanical problem, and they delayed it more and more. Right? And then there were 2 other Delta flights to New York that left basically on time before our flight left.
Yeah.
That were scheduled. Their flights were scheduled for like 6 p.m. to LaGuardia. That plane left before my 11 a.m. flight to JFK left.
They brought you that like sad Little Caesars
They
pizza.
bought a whole bunch of pizza for everybody. They gave me 5,000 miles. I don't know how much, if that's a lot or not.
That's an okay amount of miles, actually.
Whatever. The point is, they kept changing the delay by like an hour at a time, making us stay at the airport when we probably could have left and came back, 2 or 3 hours later.
See, the last time I had a flight delayed that long was when I was trying to fly to Chicago for a conference. It was like a one-day conference. I was like going to fly in the morning, do a conference, fly home like the next morning.
Yeah. So
the flight was delayed 4 hours. I was just like, fuck it, and I just canceled the whole trip and went home.
What actually ended up happening is that plane that was supposed to fly us was clearly just broken.
Yep.
They took a plane from some other flight, delayed that flight,
Yep.
used it for 90 minutes to fly to Rochester and back.
So what's funny is from what I can tell...
And then those other people had to get on that flight that we were borrowing their plane for. They were delayed 90 minutes or 2 hours while that plane was being used to bring people to Rochester 8 hours late. I actually feel worse for the people who are going to Rochester 8 hours late than us going to New York 8 hours late.
Because at least after 8 hours, you're in New York.
But also, if you're in Rochester, it's like you could, despite it being an 8-hour delay, I was only at the airport 3-4 hours because we showed up way late.
Yeah.
If I would have going to JFK, I would have had to go to JFK on time. You can't go out and come back in with that kind of security line. It's not like Rochester where the security takes 2 minutes, right?
JFK, the security takes 0 amount of time because I have pre-check.
Because you have been extorted. You allowed yourself
No,
to be
because my company bought it for me.
Your company paid an extortion fee
You pay the
immorally.
VIG. You pay the VIG to get the services, to get the goods.
The point is...
Pay the VIG, get the goods.
But if you're leaving JFK...
Scott, admit to the cruel realities of an evil world and pay the VIG.
No. If you leave JFK, even if you do,
where are you gonna go?
You
gonna hang out in
right?
Jamaica?
What are you gonna do? You're gonna take an hour air train ride, then you take all the way to Manhattan to take the train ride back. There you go. That you didn't get to do anything because it took right. You can
See, at
leave.
least LaGuardia, you can walk out and like walk to places.
Where
and then
LaGuardia Community College? Where are you gonna go?
There's a few restaurants and stuff over there.
Yeah, whatever.
Just go hang out in that park at least. The one time I remember I was flying to Istanbul, and the person who booked the flight for me, which was literally the last time I ever let anyone book my flights instead of doing it myself, they booked me through London, and I missed the connection. there weren't any flights to Istanbul for 12 hours. So I had 12 hours to hang out in Heathrow, which has horrific lines often to get into it.
Yeah. But anyway, so I spent quite a few hours in the airport. Got home to New York way late. Lost my afternoon in New York that I was expecting to have.
Oh, and also you got home, and as soon as you landed, you were able to open up chat and see that I had left you a friendly message warning you that the air train is fine, but the E train is effed.
I just paid a bunch of money and took a cab.
We were gonna take a cab, but then we didn't.
There were no line for cabs, actually.
There was no line for cabs.
What was happening? Actually, when we landed, we were at Terminal 4. You were probably at Terminal 5, right?
Yep.
Yeah, at Terminal 4, when we landed, was a complete shit show. We were like the only arrival, and I didn't have checked bags, so I just got in the cab. There was no line.
Oh, you want to know what was going on? There were a lot of other flight delays.
There was like a mega shit show going on taxiing, right? Because there's only one runway for departures. So planes were having a hard time leaving JFK. So we actually had to wait on the taxi around at JFK, waiting for a gate to open to let us off the plane. So we spent like 10 minutes just waiting to get off the plane, even though it was such a tiny flight.
What's funny, that happens a lot because JFK is currently under construction. So there's several, there's runways that cannot be used if the wind gets too high.
And then when we got into Terminal 4, they let us in the gate that was at this far
I know that
end
gate
of the terminal. We had to walk all the way.
That's like a 20-minute walk
on all 4 different people movers to get back to the shopping mall zone.
Of course, that's also the terminal that has the secret way out. If you don't have a checked bag, it just takes you right out of the terminal.
I did that too. But the point is, we as you're walking, it was a complete madhouse on both sides of the people mover. Every single flight we passed, we were looking to see if they were delayed and whatnot.
Yep.
There were huge lines to board planes, but the people weren't boarding. They were just crowding around waiting to board. They were all international flights, Copenhagen, Prague, and all these European flights, Amsterdam, Madrid.
So another thing was going on.
All of those planes were waiting to depart. They couldn't leave because they had the single runway for departures.
Yep.
So the whole terminal, all the way down, I walked the full length, was just a complete shit show. And it's like, well, glad I'm not going to, London at 9 o'clock at night.
Yep. Which I often would
Sunday.
fly. I often would fly. Well, look, usually I fly back from London like a Sunday. So.
Yeah. But anyway, airport yesterday was bad.
Yep.
Lost half a day of my life.
Yep.
Oh well.
I spent my day having fun, and my flight was only delayed an hour, and everything worked out. So the moral is, always fly Delta except that one time.
Don't be unlucky.
Yeah, don't be unlucky. JFK needs a lot more money to get fixed up.
Anyway.
That's the real moral. So there's a lot of tech news.
Yep.
Let's start with this quote-unquote instructional video thing.
Right, so someone had their YouTube video taken down, and the reason given for the video being taken down was that they were teaching people how to hack and break into systems.
Now, already what I ask is, one, what is the line?
Yeah.
What is the does lockpicking count?
Yeah, this is the thing. Is I have seen a lot of security-related YouTube videos showing you how to break security or like DEF CON, panels.
How do you think I know so much about elevator hacking?
Right. There is tons of this content on YouTube, and tons of it is educational. That YouTube claims to have an educational exemption, but isn't all of it educational?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't literally any video showing you how to get through or circumvent a security measure be an educational video simply by definition? It's like, okay, we're going to have a ban on sports videos, exception, anyone getting sweaty makes the video okay. Well, that means all sports videos are okay. What sports video has no one getting sweaty? Right?
Potentially golf late season?
Yeah, right? It's like it's like, all right, we're going to ban videos that show hacking but allow educational ones. So
yeah, what they say is there are exceptions
ban?
for videos if the primary purpose is educational, documentary, scientific, or artistic.
So all of them.
Yeah, like
literally all of them.
You ever watch a lockpicking video?
Every single video is an exception to the rule that bans the video.
Dude, you're a fan of like SGDQ? I've seen the equivalent for lockpicking. Lockpicking races are really fun to watch.
Yeah, they're in the same category as like Rubik's Cube races.
Let's see. So what do they say? Here's the actual YouTube thing. So don't post content to YouTube. Here are the actual like words they wrote. extremely dangerous challenges.
Yeah, so apparently this
I guess
is,
we can't do our mushroom challenge.
yeah.
Dangerous or threatening pranks.
We'll just make it not a challenge. We'll just make it mushroom.
Yeah, just like, hey,
Not a challenge, just mushroom.
we're going to eat this mushroom. Don't you eat this mushroom. What is this mushroom? We're about to
We
find
found
out.
it in the woods.
Yep.
There we go.
Instructions to kill, I guess,
Do you need instructions? Take gun, point the right end at the other person, pull trigger at the end.
or harm, which is.
Take knife, point it at rim, move
But
it
like-
move it closer to rim until he says ow.
But here it says like providing instructions on how to build a bomb meant to injure or kill people. So if I'm making
Take a lot of gunpowder, put it in a small space, light it on fire.
But if I'm making fireworks, that's probably fine. I'm
Take a lot of
sure-
fireworks, too many of them, bundle them together, light them on fire.
Here, how to make
near
a firework.
person.
I just found a video how to make fireworks.
Great.
Also, you know what's on YouTube? A whole bunch of World War II and Vietnam War era military instructional videos on how to make and use munitions in war. I watched a video a few weeks ago on like how to use claymores.
How to make 17th century artillery.
Yeah. Claymores is in the modern weapons, not claymores as in the big swords. But I did also watch a video on how to use the old claymores.
How to use, not how to make. Yeah,
it was how to make and
a
use.
claymore. Oh,
I watched one on
Make
how-
and use an old-fashioned.
I
claymore.
watched an instructional video on how to make improvised weapons.
Okay.
And it was a U.S. government video, so.
I saw a guy talking about like making a weapon out of like a newspaper.
Hard drug use or creation. So I've been following this channel that is literally this dude takes every drug and talks about it at length.
So YouTube is not enforcing any of these rules.
Eating
We
disorders.
keep complaining about YouTube not enforcing its hate speech rules, but what basically is happening is YouTube isn't enforcing any of its rules.
Hate speech is not listed in any of these categories that I'm looking
Right.
at.
But also, YouTube did, I guess, arbitrarily enforce its no hacking rule on this one video from this one guy and created a big uproar. And then when the guy complained, I think they took down his whole channel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, so this random, not good enforcement hit someone who made a big stink, and now everyone's focusing on it. And
See, all they would have to do is frame it as, here is a documentary of this zero-day exploit.
Yep.
And then it would probably, well, I don't even know.
Play some artistic music.
Yeah.
Let me teach you how the zero-day exploit was discovered.
Ooh.
And,
All right. Yep. So in some other news, there was actually a pretty big deal breach in Japan.
So speaking of breaches,
Yep.
how to steal money. Let's make a YouTube video. How
Yeah.
to steal money from 7-Eleven.
So, in my professional experience, and I will not go into details on this, but in my entire professional experience, going back like 15 or so years, the one thing that has been pretty consistent is that Japanese firms tend to have poor IT security. That has just been
that's not surprising from a country that is like still uses a lot of cash, right?
yeah, like that has been a theme in my entire adult professional life, and I will leave it at that. So, the other thing you need to know is that I'm about to talk about 7-Eleven, and if you live in the United States, 7-Eleven is a place to be avoided at all costs.
Indeed.
7-Eleven, like
Unless you are desperate for a sad ass hot dog,
Yup.
there's nothing else.
7-Eleven
I
is the
guess you
quickie
can buy
mart.
things there that come in a package that are okay.
Yeah, like you go to a 7-Eleven when you really need a Red Bull at 11 o'clock at night.
Yep. Or if you're at a convention, it's the only thing nearby,
Yep.
and you need Band-Aids.
But the food in a 7-Eleven, it's below the line.
oh yeah.
Like the floor in a 7-Eleven is perpetually sticky and grimy.
I think even if you're poor, you're going to the bodega to get a quarter water before
Yeah,
you're
you know
going
where
to
7-Elevens
before you're going to a 7-Eleven.
You know where 7-Elevens thrive in the U.S., where the area is too poor to even have a proper bodega.
Yeah, they only have chains there.
Like outside of...
Yeah, if you're not in a major city, you're not going to have a bodega. You're only going to have a 7-Eleven.
In Japan, 7-Elevens are the fucking shit.
They are fucking awesome.
They're amazing. In other places too, like in Hong Kong, I had lunch at a 7-Eleven 3 times.
Yeah, why
'cause
not?
Why not? It was great.
Yeah.
They had some really good dumplings,
You
actually.
can cook your ramen fucking right there.
But in Japan,
And that's only the beginning. That's
not only is 7-Eleven great, But 7-Eleven is also a lot of people's bank. Like, banking happens at 7-Eleven. Like, you buy train tickets at the 7-Eleven. They're like, there was a time when the 7-Eleven was like the only place a foreign ATM, like the only place you could use a foreign debit card to get cash.
Now, some of this, it's like in America, there is a lot of this stuff happening where like a store that does everything.
Yep.
Like we could buy, I remember when I was a kid, we would pay the electric bill at like this gas station.
Dude, we would go to the Meijer, which was a grocery store, gas station, appliance store, like home improvement store,
Like you might actually be surprised like at the number of services that places near you are offering that you're not aware of or using. But it seems like in other countries, like Japan, for instance, people are aware of the incredible wide variety of services that places like 7-Eleven offer and use them.
There is a class-based and societal-based nuance to that. In the U.S., most of the places, like those kinds of services that are not at banks,
Are used by poor people.
are not just used by poor people, they are usually exploitative and target poor people. There's a nuance there, but that nuance is important. Like, if you're doing your banking at the 7-Eleven in the U.S. or the Western Union in the U.S., it's because you are marginalized
Yes.
most of the time. So anyway, 7-Eleven has a mobile payment system that they launched so people can have a phone app that'll spit out a barcode.
So like Apple Pay?
Yeah, like Apple Pay.
Okay. So you give them your money to 7-Eleven and deposit it in 7-Eleven.
Basically.
Then you open an app on your phone and it shows a code. You scan it at a register and that register takes from your 7-Eleven account the amount of money that you're required to pay for whatever you're buying.
Basically.
And then your account decreases at 7-Eleven.
And you can like tie different debit cards to it. Like, I can't read Japanese. I don't know all the details of how it all worked, but pretty simple thing,
Something
right?
along those lines, close if not exactly.
It was launched on July 1st.
That wasn't very long ago. That was 1 week ago.
It was immediately hacked to the tune of $500,000. They shut it down immediately, and now it's fucked.
All right.
So, and this is why it's amazing.
$500,000 isn't a lot of money for such a big company,
It's
but
a lot
it's still
of
a lot
money.
of money for people to have it stolen from them.
And it's also a lot of money.
I guess, does Japan have like an FDIC equivalent? I'm assuming there was no insurance
You know,
covering this.
funnily enough, at work yesterday or last week, I was actually reading a lot about because there's
The FDIC.
So I know a lot about like U.S. financial regulatory agencies and bodies, and I know a lot about European regulatory bodies. Like in the U.S., there's ATSs. Like an ATS is like alternative trading system.
Oh,
so
okay.
so sometimes you trade on like an exchange.
Yeah.
But then you might trade on something that isn't actually an exchange,
All right.
but is regulated similarly to an exchange, but is also regulated differently.
So like I make something that lets you trade stocks. I can just make something.
You can.
And I let the SEC know about it, and they say, okay, you're following all these rules, and I say, yeah.
Basically, and it's not actually the SEC in this case, but I digress. Let's
Okay.
not get into that.
All right.
In Europe, there's a
I tell the
similar
appropriate
thing.
regulator.
There's a similar thing, but it's not an ATS. It's called an MTF, a multilateral trading. I forget.
Whatever.
Anyway, I was trying to figure out what the fuck those are and how they're regulated anywhere on Earth other than the US and the EU, and that is actually really hard to find out. And I was able to figure out that Japan has regulations around it, but I cannot find equivalent regulations in like China or Singapore or other countries in East Asia. Anyway, that was me today. I was reading Wikipedia at work to figure something out.
All right.
So I don't know what Japan's like regulatory models are around this, but the fact that they were hacked, not that interesting. The egregious security failing, like it is so egregious.
Yeah, this is like didn't even try.
So here's the deal.
situation.
They basically, to hack this, all you had to do was know someone's email address and reset their account.
Okay, and then
Now it's yours.
how did you get their like? You didn't have to like actually get an email with a link in it.
So here's what you need. You need to know the user's date of birth,
Okay.
the email address, and their phone number.
And you just lets you reset right in the app. You
it
don't-
lets you
It doesn't
change.
send any confirmation to the email or the phone number.
It asks you what email address you'd like the password to be sent to.
Oh, great.
Even better, you didn't actually even need to know their birthday because they don't require you to put in a birthday.
You could
And
just-
if you don't put one in, it defaults it to January 1st, 2019.
And it just works.
So
Works no
basically,
matter what birthday you put in.
hackers immediately just attacked this just with scatter attacks and immediately made as many charges as they could.
All right.
Like, that is egregious to the point of malfeasance.
It's not even hacking, really, based on, right? It's just it's just like, okay, if everyone's password is A, I just log in with everyone's account.
Like, on one hand, I don't want to blame the victim, but the victim here, like, the bank,
victim here is not 7-Eleven.
It's the 7-Eleven customers.
Are the customers who had their accounts emptied.
Like, everyone involved in building the system should be charged with crimes. Like,
Yes.
this is pathetic.
That is crime-worthy.
And it's
Because
amazing.
of negligence.
So,
I mean, at the very least, there should be a class action lawsuit by the people who had accounts. And
are those even a thing in Japan?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Equivalent?
I guess. Like,
And then in the U.S., that's what would happen.
Yeah, but
Or forced arbitration.
just this kind of
This
stuff.
is why you shouldn't agree to forced arbitration.
Yep, ever. In some other news, you probably saw this. It's hard to find unbiased reporting about this.
I just want to say about this story, this is a thing that happens a lot these days, where something outrageous or seemingly outrageous happens to a single or a very small number of customers or users of a certain thing, and that thing becomes a big story, and the journalists find like a couple other examples of it happening, and then they make a headline like, so-and-so does this to all their customers, all their users, they're evil, oh my God, because of a small or even a single person has an anecdote that seems outrageous or bad, and it goes both ways, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't.
But in this case, all I'm going to say is I'm going to report on this as best I can, but I found a lot of websites talking about this, but they all had very similar articles written, and I'm making quote marks, by different people, and they all seem to be focused on the single issue of restaurants don't want to have to deal with GrubHub. So I feel like there is an industry entity trying to push against GrubHub on behalf of restaurants, which
we got pro GrubHub rim over here.
may or may not be justified.
You still owning GrubHub stock over there?
Fuck no. So full disclosure, I did own a significant amount of GrubHub stock, and also full disclosure, I sold it all some time ago for a substantial profit. I currently own 0 GrubHub stock, so I got no horse in this race.
Also, disclosure, we both use GrubHub a lot.
I use GrubHub a lot because I'm not calling you on the phone to order pizza.
I use it like maybe 3-4 times a month.
I use it maybe 1 to 1.5 times a week on average.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say month, but no, you're using way more than me.
Yeah, I order in at least once a week.
Okay, I do maybe once a week, but in some weeks 0.
I think part of the difference is there's 2 of us, so it's more bang for our buck if we order in. Because
maybe
ordering Indian food for 1 is 2 nights worth of Indian food.
That's right.
Ordering Indian food for 2 is either 2 nights of Indian food or 1 night of Indian food. Like, it works out. So the story that you saw was GrubHub created fake restaurant websites to screw restaurants over.
Okay. Speaking of which, if you don't realize, GrubHub does sort of screw restaurants over in a way. If you're a restaurant, it's like, all right, nobody who's buying food to get delivery online is going to find you if you're not on GrubHub. So it's like you need to be on there.
Yeah, I search for restaurants on GrubHub. I don't search elsewhere and then see if they have a GrubHub.
It's like if you try to make your own website or be listed on some other thing, if you're not on GrubHub or Seamless, it's like people aren't really going to find your restaurant. They're going to order from your competitor. You're not going to get a lot of deliveries unless people know your restaurant. And even then, if they know your restaurant, they'll probably search for it on GrubHub and not on Google. And it's like, but the problem is how do they screw you over? They screw you over because they know they're the only game in town, and they charge like a 30% ridiculous fee. So it's like you pay the restaurant $30. GrubHub's taking like $10.
Yep.
Right? The restaurants do not make a lot of money when you buy on GrubHub. You should tip them well.
You know what I do? My policy, because just the way things are in New York in particular, I tip GrubHub delivery people at the rate I would tip at a restaurant.
Yeah, I do too.
Because, so a waiter just came and delivered me
Basically
some
what
food.
I do
This dude was on a on an electric bike going the wrong way up the freeway to get me my food. food.
preloaded percentage buttons. I push the one farthest to the right.
I do
Whatever
20.
it
I do
is.
20-ish% because I figure if you're on a bicycle
Yeah, that
in
thing
the
that's
rain,
the farthest to the
yeah,
right.
if you're on the bicycle in the rain delivering me pizza at 11
Oh,
o'clock
if
at
you're
night,
in the rain, I go above
Yep.
and beyond if it's raining or snowing or something.
you deserve a real tip.
And I also try not to order in those situations to begin with, only
Yeah.
if I really have to.
Yeah, and if I really have to, I'd leave a big tip.
Yeah.
But basically, here's the deal as best I can tell. I'm going to link to two things because on one hand, the second article I'll link to is how to avoid GrubHub, but honestly, replace GrubHub with Amazon, it's the exact same conversation. Amazon is problematic for everyone except Amazon and the consumer. GrubHub's the same way. Before GrubHub, ordering from restaurants sucked.
Yep.
And outside of New York City, ordering from restaurants sucks. But basically, what GrubHub was doing is if you make an account with GrubHub, they would not only like set up the thing to let you order food, but they would make websites that have basically like it's a website for your restaurant that is integrated with GrubHub. So if someone finds that website, they can
So
basically
if someone were to Google for, Rim's Chicken Shack, they would find a standalone website for Rim's Chicken Shack, but it's actually a GrubHub-powered website that would allow them to browse your menu and order from Rim's Chicken Shack directly from rimschickenShack.com.
Yep.
Without in case they Googled instead of going to GrubHub first. And on the one hand, that's good because you maybe didn't have a website, right? And now people are finding your website finding your restaurant if they happen to search Google instead of GrubHub, and they're placing an order with you. So that's helpful. It's not helpful because what if you do have a website? There's actually you already have your own Rim's Chicken Shack website that allows non-GrubHub ordering that doesn't have this big cut taken out if anyone happens to order there. Someone Googles for Rim's Chicken Shack, and above Rim's Chicken Shack in the search results is this website made by GrubHub. Someone clicks on that instead of the second one, and basically, because they click that link instead of the other one, Rim's losing like $10.
Yep. But at the same time, if someone clicks on the real website, then they're going to have to order direct from the restaurant, which, in my experience, usually doesn't work because most restaurant owners have a garbage website that no one maintains that doesn't work.
That is true. But
I have literally
for
ordered
example,
from restaurants before where no food came, and I called them, and they were like, what? Like,
Yep.
they didn't know you could order online from their website. I've
Right.
had that happen to me.
But for example, Burger Club over here in Astoria, right? They have their own website. It's powered by some kind of software they've installed. It's, I guess, like a WordPress equivalent for restaurants. I forget what it's called. It's some kind of thing. So if you order directly from Burger Club's website, it does not go through GrubHub.
Yep.
And the price is slightly cheaper, and the restaurant gets a lot more money.
So,
And if you order from GrubHub, it's the same exact menu. The prices are a little bit more expensive, and the restaurant gets way less money.
what's sad is, personally, there are some restaurants around here that have their own website to order from, and it's the same deal. It's slightly cheaper. Kind of like how I'm unwilling to launch any application other than Steam to buy games. Not really willing to go to a website and log in with a separate credential to order food, even if it's cheaper.
It's the only reason is because I didn't have to make a credential. It lets me log in with Google.
Ah, that's not bad. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But so one thing that might be happening here too is that GrubHub's website, the one they make for the restaurant, is probably better and more linked to than the actual restaurant's website, because who links to a restaurant's website? There's going to be no SEO. Like, there's going to be no Google juice for the website restaurant unless you're searching Google Maps. That's just how it is.
Yep.
No one's linking to your crappy restaurant's website on a regular basis.
Nope.
So,
Unless you happen to be that one restaurant that's really good at internet, which maybe this one that started this story is.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because basically, I'm reading into this, but I'm not going to explain the details of the lawsuit because that is way too much to talk about
There's
right
actually
now.
a lawsuit? I didn't know that.
There's a lawsuit.
Okay.
Alleging that the company bills restaurants for commission fees when calls are made through the number. Because GrubHub, those websites also provide phone numbers you can call where a human will take the order for GrubHub.
Oh.
And the lawsuit is claiming.
Does the human just go to GrubHub and type in the info?
Why not? That's
that you
what I would
call
do.
on the phone?
That's what I would do.
You call someone on the phone, they go to GrubHub.com and type in your order for you? That's some bullshit.
But they're claiming that GrubHub was taking commission fees even if those calls did not result in an order. That would be some bullshit.
How could you have a commission on a $0?
That's what I don't
order?
understand. The lawsuit seems to be about other things and not the thing everyone's talking about.
Interesting.
So the thing everyone's talking about, From what I can tell, GrubHub in 2018 stopped offering this service of making these microsites.
Okay, maybe because of this lawsuit.
No, because no one used them apparently.
Yeah,
And two,
I've never seen one.
GrubHub said in response to this, like they've been responding to all these articles, site owners can request that these sites be taken down at any time with no cost, and the ownership of the domains would be transferred to the restaurant free of charge. So if you are a restaurant, you could say, hey, give me the domain. GrubHub just gives it to you.
GrubHub has just registered a domain for you.
Point this domain that has a shit ton of Google juice at your real website. You just win. I think what's happening here, and this is just me guessing based on my interactions with people in this industry, is that the restaurants who are complaining about this the most don't understand how to use a domain that they are given. Like, they don't know how to point this domain at their website because their website was either made by their cousin's younger brother or was made by a fly-by-night consulting company and they don't know how to update it. That is how most restaurant websites are. There's a lot. You can read all these details, but all I'm saying is when you see these stories of Grubhub creating fake websites for restaurants, there's always a lot more to the story. And if you see a lot of articles talking about the same thing that use very, very similar copy, look into it a little bit deeper. There's probably something else going on. The real issue is that no one wants to go to more than one website to buy things, News at 11. So in some last really light news before we get into the main bit, I saw a ton of people talking about this, the Discord virus. Yeah, there's no Discord virus.
Okay.
Here's what's going on. Some people are sending malicious links to other people via Discord chats.
So you open Discord, you go to some server, you have a link that goes to some malware site.
Yep.
You send the link to someone, and they stupidly click on it.
They stupidly click on it, and then
I guess people are more likely to click on a link. If you send someone a link via email, the spam filter gets it, and no one clicks on it. You send someone a shady link on Discord, well, they click it.
But even then, you go to this website, it's shady, and then you type in all your credentials again and give it access to your Discord. And then you're effed, and your Discord is ruined forever, and hackers steal it and spam your friends, and it's a thing that's been happening a lot, apparently. All I'm going to say, I'm not going to dwell on this, not even going to talk about the details, not even going to link directly to any article
That's not a virus.
It's not a virus. If you fall for this, you're dumb.
Yep.
But more importantly, this is happening a lot, and it worries me, because basically
people are morons.
People older than us fall for phishing a lot. People our age fall for it less for reasons that I don't want to get into now, but I'm seeing people younger than us, like, they get the Russian bot thing. Like, they can recognize when, like, there's a Russian bot posting on their Facebook wall or tweeting at them. Like, they get it. But they don't understand phishing. Like, they're falling for this ridiculous phishing stuff again, and it's happening a lot because they don't know how computers work.
Let's teach a man to fish.
Yeah. Should we just make a phishing site that deletes your accounts?
I'll just quit my job, become a fisherman.
So, yeah, if you fall for this, like, I don't know, my condolences. Learn how to spot babies first phishing. These are not even sophisticated attacks. These are literally, like, I clicked on one of these links to see the deal. This is literally the equivalent of those AIM phishing attacks from, like, the 90s. So what's old is new. And it's time for... Oh, we got a bunch of people watching this show. All right.
Go away, people.
There are 13 people hanging out in here.
An unlucky...
Oh, 12! 12! Someone left. Someone left.
All right.
Okay.
They saw you looking, and they ran away. Go away, people. Get something better to do.
All right.
Eat dinner. Order something on GrubHub.
But anyway, things of the day. What do you got?
So it was 4th of July weekend. 4th of July weekend in America, you tend to have a BBQ, which is not usually not barbecue of the the kind you get at a barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, when Americans say barbecue,
we mean grilling some hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yep.
We also say barbecue when we mean ribs, but we also say barbecue when we mean grill some hot
Don't
dogs.
judge.
And hamburgers.
That's just how the English language is in the U.S.
Yes, that's how American English is. Whatever. But yeah, the hot dog and hamburger style of barbecue. Grilling also involves often nice desserty or, sort of side dish. You cut up a big old watermelon. Tastes great. It's watermelon season. That's how it works, right? So here you go. This is Guy. I just discovered his YouTube channel. I'm sure other people have been following it for quite a while because it's got 5 fucking million plus views on this video. It was like trending something on YouTube. But in case you haven't seen it, Turtle loves watermelon. There's this guy called the Fish Whisperer. And he's got a little pond or whatever he hangs out at. And he's got some turtle friends and fish friends. And they love him, and he keeps going to feed him and take care of him. And there's other videos on here. He made special popsicles for the turtles. He's just like, these turtles are getting like, really sweet life thanks to this guy who comes over and takes care of them all the time and gives them sweet shit. And everyone loves cute turtles. So here you go.
It's good stuff. So in another cute and possibly anti-fa video, so cockatoos are terrifyingly smart.
Mm-hmm.
Like parrots are in general, but cockatoos,
if you don't know, that's the white bird that like fans out all its feathers, like
yep. And I'm a fan of cockatoos,
like the ones on its head too, like.
But this is pretty amazing because cockatoos are real smart, and there are many kinds of cockatoos, but some cockatoos are thriving in a world where they coexist with humans. Like, they coexist with humans and they figure our shit out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem because unlike, say, squirrels trying to steal my food, cockatoos can be as smart as a, like, 2 to 2.5-year-old human.
Mm-hmm.
That is trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the weekend in the presence of a not even 2-year-old human who could, open a door.
Yep.
Or point at things, grab stuff, right? It's like, oh shit, that's somewhat more intelligent than I thought that a child that old would be.
So a thing that people do in places like Australia is they will put anti-bird spikes on surfaces to keep birds away.
That's not just something people do in Australia. It's something people do everywhere.
Yeah, but Australia, it's very common because
hostile architecture against humans and animals. In New York, you see it for pigeons all the time. Like it's funny because you see a place, but like there's pigeon shit everywhere. There's clearly a whole ton of pigeons hanging out here, shitting all over, and you see spikes all over the fucking everything, and there's still pigeon shit everywhere.
So this video is a cockatoo very methodically, with purpose and intent, malice aforethought, is dismantling and discarding the anti-bird spikes.
Mm-hmm.
And you watch it and you're like, okay, the bird is removing these spikes. But then the video zooms down and you see that the bird has been at it all day.
Yeah, is remove the spikes from like the vast majority of the fence. They are all on the ground.
Yep, like he's just working down the line. This bird's taking one for the team. This bird is a bird hero.
Yep.
In the meta moment, the GeekNights book club book is still Pages of Pain by Troy Denning.
That was something on my to-do list. I forget. The book club book is the first novel ever written in recorded human history. The Tale of Genji.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well, when Scott
Start
updates
at the beginning, and then next we're gonna read the second novel in human history.
Gilgamesh?
I don't know. Gilgamesh is older, I think, than Tale of
Well,
Genji.
that's more an oral
and
storytelling.
I think it is not a novel.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it counts as a novel. Like Homer's stuff doesn't count as a novel.
Odyssey is much older than the Tale of Genji. It is a epic poem. It is not a novel.
Yep, but the Tale of Genji, I've never actually read it. I've only read excerpts from it.
Make sure you get the unabridged Penguin Deluxe version. If you get the abridged one, that is not what we are going to read because we don't read abridged shit. We are pros.
Yep, you're playing Scrabble.
Hard mode only.
We're playing Scrabble, unabridged OED.
No baby mode.
Where Scott famously beat me in Scrabble once because he misspelled laser because he wasn't paying attention, but it turned out that misspelling is a word in the OED.
That's right.
I was salty, shall we say, on that day.
That's why Scrabble is not a good game.
All right.
It's a game of memorization.
Let's talk about, and we got no cons till PAX. And then PAX
West is actually in 2 weeks, 2 months.
I was about to say, I have not finished writing panels.
2 months, PAX West in Seattle.
Seattle.
Yep, Labor Day weekend.
Yep. We hopefully will see you there.
All right.
So let's talk about the dark web.
Right. Well, I mean, back in the day.
High level. We're not going too deep in this.
Right?
Not yet.
Back in the day, in the earlier internet days, the late 90s, early 2000s, right? You had this internet connection. And at least, my experience in the 90s was open up AOL, connect. And once you're connected, you can now run any internet app What? Shut up, Siri. You suck.
Scott, what are you doing?
I don't know. I wasn't even touching my watch. I don't even have Siri. I thought I had Siri disabled.
Well, Siri's always
I'll
listening.
have to do some more disabling.
But yeah, you had access
You
to.
had an internet connection, and then you could run any network application, and it would connect. So, for example, you could run IRC.
Yep.
You could run Gopher. You could run Netscape Navigator.
All you needed to know.
You could run AIM.
All you needed to know was a DNS name or an IP address and a port number and a protocol.
You could run a video game that had internet network play. You could run a file sharing program like Napster. You could run,
Now, kind of like in the days before that, you could, if you knew the phone number of the BBS, you could get in. Same deal.
Then there were some that were even more advanced, like, for example, Hotline. You would run Hotline, and then you'd have to know the IP address of a Hotline server to connect to, right? And then you'd be like, ooh, or you could run a Hotline server, right? So it was like there was a whole world of networking apps, right, that used the internet, and none of it was necessarily dark, but it was sort of like, they call it on Wikipedia at least the hidden web or the invisible web, where it's like, it's just there's a thing on the internet. There are services that servers are providing on the internet. They're on network ports that are open, waiting to provide you with data.
Like, here are two examples.
You must know about them or hear about them from somewhere. And
Security through obscurity.
And be intelligent enough or in the know enough to run the software, get the software, configure it, and connect, and to do the thing.
Now, in the old days, before the internet, like when you were doing this with phones, you could kind of war dial and find things.
Yeah, you'd have to know the phone number of the thing.
But if you didn't know the phone number, you could war dial your neighborhood and find the phone number.
Yep.
But then, when we were in high school, that was an era of the internet where there weren't really search engines that worked yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, there were websites, unless someone told you how to get there was no way to know it existed.
Yep.
So, for one thing, I knew of the IP address of a particular server that had Quake 2. I could type in this IP address, and there was a Quake 2 server there with only good people.
Mm-hmm.
On that same IP address, if you, in the web browser, typed a colon, so that IP address, colon, and a particular port number, there was a website there, and that website had, shall we say, things to download. Wares.
Wares.
There were wares there.
You don't say.
But cops aren't going to be able to find that unless someone's stupid enough to tell a cop the IP address and the port. The cops could never find the place that I downloaded expensive software from in the 90s.
Right. So, this is the way things were. But over time, people sort of, stopped using all these other softwares for the most part. And because people just kept making more and more advanced websites and web browsers. So it's like, oh, instead of having your separate Thunderbird email app, you now just go to gmail.com in your browser. Instead of having your separate IRC app, you have Slack and Discord, which run in the browser. And if you do have these separate standalone Slack and Discord apps, guess what? Those are just web browsers in disguise. They're literally just Chrome without a location bar at the top and some other slight mods to them.
And there are apps like Discord and WhatsApp.
I did just say, that Discord app is literally just another copy of Chrome.
Yeah.
It is not really its own app that is any different.
But more importantly, all these things, because of entities like Google, they are discoverable by anyone.
Yep. Because Google, you search and you can find them. Anything that's web-based.
Yep,
right?
The World Wide Web, the www that you don't type in anymore.
Right. But there are still some things that are on the hidden/invisible web, right? These are things where you search on Google, you won't find them. You have a website you have to know about, right?
Now
an IRC server you have to know about.
But website you have to know about means it probably doesn't have a DNS entry.
It may or may not.
If it has a DNS entry, someone has cataloged that.
It could still be, there's a DNS entry, but you got to go to / something, a hidden port,
but crawlers have an economy of scale to find those things. Ostensibly,
it could even be something where it is indexed by Google, but no matter what you search for, if it even shows up as a result, it'll be like the 10,000th result. No one will ever see that link.
There are a lot of parts of the internet that are hard to find, but that is not what we were talking about today.
Yep.
The dark web
is the next level of hidden web.
The dark web is something that has, it is relatively
You read about it in the news a lot, and you're like, what the hell is that? It's not super new, but it's, it's new enough.
The closest equivalent to the modern dark web are private dark networks that ran proprietary software that were rarely, if ever, used. Like a group of people using Waste together could theoretically be like the dark web.
Right. So imagine for a second.
Waste was something Nullsoft made. We've talked about it a lot in the
Winamp
past.
company. Yeah. Anyway, so imagine for a second, like in my house, I make a LAN, a bunch of computers wired together, and I run a bunch of services, maybe a web server, maybe a game server, maybe a file server, right? All kinds of stuff, right? And then it's not connected to the internet. There's no way that anyone can access any of these services unless they come to my house.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So now I connect it to the internet, but due to fancy networking and several routers and VPNs and all that sort of stuff, there's no way for anyone to just connect to it from the internet directly. They type in the IP address of and they're not going to hit anything. They're just going to hit like this outside router, and they're not going to see jack shit. None of these services are going to be accessible to them.
Because basically the way the internet works, and we've done old episodes about this, is that in the end, whatever you're trying to get to has an IP address.
Yep.
And there are ranges of IP addresses that are routable, meaning if I type in this IP from anything connected to the internet, I will be able to get to it from anywhere else on the internet.
Yep.
Every router, thanks to routing protocols, which we talked about recently because of that big Cloudflare outage, the Ryzen outages, not the Cloudflare outage, but like the internet says, oh, you want to get to that IP? I know the next stop. Go there and ask that guy.
Yep.
Like everything works that way. But there are ranges of IPs where every router on the internet will say, you can't get there.
Yep.
Because they're reserved for things like private networks. Like, your house is 192.168. something.
Yep.
That's because everyone's house is 192.168. something.
That's right.
Unless you're cool, and then it's 10 dot something. 10 dot something, 172.
Right.
Yeah.
You get the idea. The point is, if you can set up, it's possible, and actually quite frequently used, things like VPNs, Tor, onion routing, you may have heard of some of this stuff, such that someone who is in the know and has the right software and has the right credentials and has the right configurations and is in the know could run a bunch of things on their computer and then actually connect to those services that are otherwise completely inaccessible network-wise.
So-
No amount of searching on the internet or scanning or sending packets will ever find these services because there are layers of encryption and routing and other shenanigans that make them inaccessible except for someone who is in the know and goes right in there.
Well, like Waste was an example of that, where what it did is if I run this software and Scott runs this software and all the people we personally know and trust run this software, we can go to an IP address and send data to each other in a way that no one can trace and no one else has access to.
Yep, we can chat, we can share files, we can do all sorts of stuff, and it's 100% encrypted and 100% deniable, and no one will ever know that any of it happened, and no one who hasn't been given a key by us will ever be able to find it or access it, even though it's just out on the internet. This is even more than that. This is like, because even with a waste, someone might be able to scan and say, oh, there's a waste there that I can never access.
Yep.
This is, you'll never find, you won't even know this web server is there ever, no matter, even if you search every IP address on the whole internet and every port, you will never see this web server, right? You will only maybe see like some sort of VPN gateway that you can't get into, and there's completely mysterious shit behind it.
Yep. Like, this is the kind of crap where you will, like, take a range of IP addresses that belong to another company like Microsoft, and if you're running the right software and connected to the right VPN with the right tunnel, the right time of day, when the moon is full, when you type that IP address, instead of going to Microsoft, it goes somewhere else.
Yep.
But when the cops type that IP address, it goes to Microsoft.
Yep.
And shady shit happens in there.
Yeah, this is where people are buying and selling bitcoins, using bitcoins to buy and sell drugs and weapons and child porn and all sorts of bad shit.
Yep.
And because, let's be honest, there's not a lot of reason to go through all this hassle to do legitimate things. Now,
The
I
closest
don't
thing
want
I can think of is activism in oppressive states.
Yes, there are some good reasons to use it, and I'm not saying anyone who uses it is bad. Clearly not, right? It's like, oh, why do you have tinted windows? What are you trying to hide? If you got nothing to hide, you shouldn't be tinting your windows, right? We all know that argument's bullshit,
Yep.
right? But the point is, just the truth of it is the vast majority of dark web shit is shenanigans.
Yeah, the
or
smaller
people
dark...
or people thinking they're cool going to where the bad kids hang out.
But, like, for example, a lot of the things that, like, legitimate uses of dark nets are things like we said, we're fighting against an oppressive state.
Yep.
In those cases, you don't really
An
even
oppressive
need...
state will usually just turn the internet off, though. Then you're not getting to the dark web or the light web.
That's where you need, like, distributed peer-to-peer nonsense.
Yep.
But that's more like waste. That's like small-scale peer-to-peer friend networks. Dark web is where you need people you don't know to be able to, thanks to knowledge, get into the system to interact with you in a way that you can burn that
Right.
bridge if you need to.
Right. You want to make stuff available on the web. You don't want just anyone stumbling across it randomly. But
Yep.
you want people in the know around the world to be able to get together and share information in a place.
Now,
as
if you-
securely and privately as possible. Like a speakeasy, but when the cops come, they go into the phone booth in the restaurant and they
Yep.
dial the exact right number and
What kind of pet shop is open at 3 a.m.?
and it doesn't open. But then someone in the know comes and they go whoop, right into the speakeasy.
Yep. So what's funny is we don't need this for software piracy. Software piracy just happens without the dark web.
Right. You only need the dark web for much more heinous and much more dangerous
You need the dark
things.
web to get like the key to the botnet you paid for with bitcoins that you're trying to use to launder the cocaine money. Like that is what you use the dark net for, the dark web
Or you
for.
use the dark web to feel cool because you're hanging out with people who you believe these fantastical tales of bitcoins and drugs about.
Yeah.
Right? You hear those kinds of stories and go, ooh, I want to get in on that. And then you go do some dark web and it's kind of boring. And it's just some websites. They're just websites you couldn't see unless you did a bunch of shenanigans with Tor and onion routing.
Yep.
And now there's websites there.
So
and
based
you
on
feel cool because you're seeing websites other people can't see.
Yep. So based on Wikipedia, because I'm poking around on some stats that are posted here.
Yep.
Onion services, like I don't want to get into all the different ways this works. What I will say is if you're young and you're going into college, study the technology of how dark networks and overlay networks and all this stuff are
much of
set
this
up.
technology, at least some of it, especially the routing technology, is useful for network engineering and legitimate purposes.
Yeah, like
If you
this
think
is
about
stuff
it,
that
a
I have not studied closely because it was not much of a thing when I was in college.
Yeah, if you think about it, like a lot of corporate intranets and kind of stuff is not too far away from dark web.
Yeah,
You know?
you want to do like fancy
Dark
load
web is-
balancing.
It's dark web adjacent tech.
Yeah. So based on Wikipedia, it seems like the dark web is used almost entirely to buy and sell drugs.
Yes, that is the number one use for sure.
That seems number 2, let's see, is selling other things, like other illegal goods that are not drugs.
Yep.
And
Well,
fraud.
'cause
are pretty
I think it's drugs are the most, I think, because they are ones that you can't sell. It's something you can't sell easily on the open web.
I mean, if the GeekNights website just started selling cocaine.
You can't sell crack on Amazon, right?
Yep.
So but you can it's actually pretty easy to ship cocaine, like just by UPS or whatever. It actually gets through a surprising amount of time.
Because you keep saying it's actually really easy, to be clear, we do not ship cocaine to anyone.
I'm the person who doesn't drink alcohol. You think I've ever bought or sold or touched any cocaine ever,
Yep.
right? It's like, no.
But from what I like, a lot, like, actually, like, people ship illegal things all the time
Right.
with just, like,
But
the Postal Service.
But it's a lot harder to ship, say, a gun.
Yep.
Right, in an illegal manner, because it's like that's a big metal thing that will be detected, whereas some white powder in a tiny bag usually ends up in an envelope in someone's mailbox, and then they call the police.
Yep.
It's not
But-
like it got there, right?
But where do you put your storefront that says I'm selling cocaine?
Yeah, you can't. You got to put it somewhere where cops can't see it.
You put it on the dark web with an address for like bitcoins.
Yep.
And if someone deposits bitcoins, then you just mail a package to the address they posted.
I'm sure the dark web is also full of tricks to catch naive people who have Googled on how to get to the dark web, got to the dark web, looked for the drugstore,
Yep.
and then got fooled and then got all their bitcoins robbed.
Which is
right?
funny because before the dark web,
Don't hang out in the shady part of town, kids.
actually there is one dark web I
Try
can
to
think
do
of.
shady biz.
You know what? One of the dark webs that we actually used a lot that isn't really a thing anymore. Internet 2 was kind of a dark web
Sort of.
in the sense that the
It's
RIAA,
physically an entire separate network.
the RIAA, the MPAA, and the cops couldn't really get access to Internet 2.
I
but
wonder how Internet 2 is doing these days.
it's not a thing anymore.
At all?
Not really, no.
Okay.
But basically, because we were at a university that had access to this, we had access to a separate network. So, like, between U of R and RIT, there was this direct connect server that we all had access to that no one else had access to. So no one could see what we were pirating. That was just a thing. We had this private piracy network that no one else could access. So it's kind of like that.
Internet 2 seems to still exist.
But it's not the kind of thing it was when we were. It's not the same thing anymore.
It still seems to be the same as it was. It hasn't. I don't think it's advanced very much.
There are like that direct connect is gone.
I mean, yeah, sure, but I'm saying the Internet 2 itself is still...
It does not have the advantages that it had back in the day.
It has 500 members, including 251 institutions of higher education.
Yep.
So if you're at one of those 500 places, you're on Internet 2. So basically, Internet 2, if you don't know, is 500 places on Earth that have their own separate internet connections, like physically, and they can all share data with each other much, much faster than people who are internet normal.
Yep, but it's all I will say is that it is policed in a way that it was not capable of being policed when we were in college.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
So what do we do with what would we do about darknets? There's no way to make them go away.
I mean, it's the fundamental structure of the internet and the networking technologies that have been developed will always mean that, yeah, it's possible to do things like this.
There's always holes and cracks in systems. Like, say these darknets all get taken down. People would know that if you're on the World of Warcraft server at a particular time of day, at a particular time of place, when the moon is full, you go talk to the weird-looking elf, and he will give you a word, and you give it to someone else, and then you have a private chat with someone, and then you follow the trail of breadcrumbs, and eventually you buy your internet cocaine with a Bitcoin.
Right? It's just mathematically impossible to not have this technology unless you make an internet that works differently, and I think it's too late for that.
Yep.
So, I mean, they are what they are. Right?
Yeah.
It's out there.
They're the modern equivalent.
Don't go trying to do stupid shit and losing all your money. Don't fuck around with evil Bitcoins and stuff. Maybe use this stuff, if you have a legitimate reason or you just want to, learn about networking.
So what I was getting onto before I got sidetracked on Internet 2 is that in those early 2000s era, because in the 90s, pirated software was just always great. But in the 2000s, if you went to the wrong place to get wares, you would get your pirated software and it was full of malware.
Yep.
But if you knew the right people, you'd go to very similar looking sites that had the legit stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You just had to know.
Yep.
And the dark web is the same way. I guess you just have to know.
Right. For example, today I was reading a story about how people pirate video from Netflix and stuff.
Yep.
And apparently they go to Netflix, they watch a video, right? It takes about 8 minutes or whatever, because how long does a Netflix video take to download, right?
Yep.
They capture all the chunks of video, but it's all encrypted, and if you try to watch it in VLC, it'll just be black screen. But they capture all the packets, right? And then there's tools to decrypt those things and make actual watchable MP4s.
Yep.
Those tools are very highly guarded by the people that made them. If you try to go on the dark web and search for them, you'll find old fake ones, or you'll find someone selling the software for a Bitcoin or two, and actually, they give you software that doesn't work.
Yep.
Right? But
well, you know what they do? They give you software that steals the rest of your Bitcoin.
Right. There's a small number of people that have developed and share and use this software that it can actually, has the decryption. Probably people who, anonymous people who probably work to make the encryption at Netflix are probably also getting the decryption out there, right? It's probably,
Yep.
I imagine it's an inside job. And it's highly guarded, so it's not something you can Google for. You have to know the right dark web place to go get it.
Dark webs are basically they're kind of like those shady bazaars in cyberpunk fantasy.
Yep.
Kind of legit. That's what they are.
Yep.
And like it said,
You go in Planescape, and you go to the back of the bar,
Yep.
and you go through the portal in the door, and then you're gone, you're in some other place, and when the cops come in, they look in the back room, and it's a back room.
So my advice to you, the listener, is that one, if you are not super confident in your personal ability to know how to deal with bad people, and you do not have deep confidence in your own OPSEC, do not interact with the dark web.
Yep.
You are going to get effed.
Yeah.
That is not something you should be messing around with.
Nope.
Number two, if you are going to school or want to learn about networking, if you learn how darknets and overlay networks and onion networks and all this stuff work, you will be highly sought after because this stuff is very complicated and very like it is difficult to understand the nuances of how these things are actually set up. And if you learn how to make that, like how this stuff works, you can get a job in corporate IT, or you can get a job working for those same shady people if you are very confident in your abilities.
Yeah, you also can, learn enough that you could, say, go and browse the dark web and just not engage in any shady activities. As long as you don't do any bitcoins or drugs or guns, if you just, poke around and see what's what, you'll see some interesting stuff and have some fun.
You'll probably see a lot of child porn, though, too.
Don't look at that either.
But that seems to be a big part of what is on the dark web.
I imagine it is. Don't look at that. Just go to you, but you could, do some onion routing and have, fun just doing the technology part of it itself the same way you would have fun setting up like a RAID in your house and then not using it.
Yep.
Right?
But
you don't have that much data.
I cannot stress enough, and I say this as someone who is very interested in hacking and cracking and freaking back when that was still a thing. This is actually kind of dangerous to fuck around with if you are not careful.
Yeah, because you go to a drug selling website and then it's one the FBI set up on the. If you can figure out how to get on the dark webs, right? The one that you can.
Well, even more importantly,
the place that you can find is the place the FBI can find also, and they set up a fake drugstore and you buy a drug from it.
Or more importantly,
Genius.
you fuck with the wrong person and buy something from them, and then they blackmail you.
Right.
Because they are not great people,
Nope.
and this is. Do not let people in places like that figure out who you are.
And it's like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is anonymous, and then
no, it's not.
And then you don't do it right, and now they know who you are.
I'll say this: if you think Bitcoin is anonymous, never ever use the dark web. Bitcoin is so the opposite of anonymous that half of what happens on the dark web is you need to pay people in Bitcoin to anonymize the other Bitcoins you use to buy your cocaine or to sell your cocaine,
and not steal them.
And then the only way to get that money out of the system is to launder it. Literally money laundering. You have to commit federal crimes to get money back out of the dark web.
Yep.
Even if you didn't do anything illegal in the dark web.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Don't do anything involving coins and you'll be more okay.
Don't do anything involving coins. Don't buy anything on the dark web.
Don't type your personal information into anything ever.
Yep. If you are not confident that you are not...
Browse the dark web using a computer that is not have access to your other computers with their personal information on them.
Yep.
Maybe use like a virtual machine or some shit.
Yep. Don't necessarily trust that VPN you're paying for to protect you.
Yeah, no.
Basically, stay away from this stuff unless you are one of the few edge cases we talked about.
But, if you're I think the best way to fool around with it would be actually, because I just mentioned a virtual machine.
Yep.
Make a little dark web in your house with a bunch of virtual machines.
Or, better.
Or make your own little dark web with like a bunch of like, cloud service machines like on Oz or Linode or something.
Or pro move. This is if I were younger and still in college, this is the kind of thing I would do.
And then get all your friends and teach them how to access your own dark web that doesn't have drugs or child porn or bitcoins.
Yeah, like I would do this if I was younger or if things were more dire, but make a dark net for you and your friends to have fun.
Yep.
That would be cool. And if you do this and you do it right, then if an oppressive state appears in a place you live where it wasn't previously oppressive...
As long as you still have any kind of internet connection, you'll be all right.
Yep. All right, I think that was a pretty good show. I actually am going to learn more because my knowledge of overlays like this stuff, pretty weak at this point. Like I